There are 5 questions you should never answer, and the people who ask them are not always as harmless as they seem. These questions are not complicated. They are not aggressive interrogations. They are not obvious traps with clear warning signs. In fact, they feel very different from that. They sound gentle. They sound warm. They sound like they are coming from someone who cares about you, someone who respects you, someone who simply wants to talk. And that is exactly what makes them dangerous. Because the most dangerous questions in the world rarely sound dangerous. They sound like trust. They sound like honesty. They sound like friendship. And by the time you realize what really happened, you have already given away something you cannot take back. Machiavelli spent his life watching how people destroyed themselves. Not on battlefields, but in conversations. One wrong answer at the wrong moment could cost someone their reputation, their position, or their influence. And he noticed something most people still do not understand even today. The people who fall are not usually the ones who are attacked directly. They are the ones who are asked the right question at the right moment by the right person, and they answer honestly because it felt safe. In this video, I am going to show you all the questions, but the 5th one is the root. It is the question that makes the other 4 possible. If you learn to never answer that one question, the power of the other 4 almost disappears. But first, you need to understand the first 4 so you can clearly see why the 5th one matters the most. Before we go deeper, let me make one thing clear. This is not about becoming paranoid. This is not about thinking everyone around you is a threat. This is about protection. It is about understanding which questions are safe to answer and which ones are designed to take something from you without you realizing it. That is not distrust. That is awareness. Here is something most people never realize. From childhood, you were trained to answer every question that comes your way. A teacher asks, you answer. A parent asks, you answer. An authority figure asks, and you immediately respond. That training made you obedient. It did not make you powerful. Real power begins the moment you understand that not every question deserves a truthful answer. The space between someone asking a question and you answering it is the most important moment in any conversation. In that small space, you either keep your control or you give it away. Right now, that space probably does not exist for you, but by the end of this video, it will. And once you see it, it never disappears again. Let's begin. The first question you should never answer is one that happens constantly. It happens at work, at home, with friends, and even with family. The moment you hear it, you will recognize it immediately. Someone does something that directly affects you. They make a decision without asking you. They cross a line. They commit to something in your name. They change a plan. They use your time. And after everything is already done, after the action has already happened, they look at you and say, you don't mind, right? That's okay with you, isn't it? You're fine with that, right? Stop for a second and think about what just happened. They are not asking for your permission. They already acted. The decision is already made. The question is not really a question. It is a notification disguised as a request. The way it is worded forces you to agree, because the expected answer is no, I don't mind. Anything else makes you look difficult, emotional, or unreasonable. The question is designed in a way that disagreement comes with a social cost, and most people would rather stay silent than pay that cost. The person asking understands this perfectly. That is why they acted first and asked later. Think about how many times this has happened to you. Someone gave away your time and then said, you don't mind helping, right? Someone shared something personal about you and then said, you're not upset about that, are you? Someone took credit for something you worked on and then said, we're a team, so it doesn't really matter, right? When you answer this question with it's fine, you think you are being easygoing. You think you are keeping the peace. But the person asking just learned something very important about you. They learned that they can act first and get your approval later. And once someone learns that, they will repeat the same behavior again. The next time, the situation will be a little bigger, a little more uncomfortable, a little more costly for you. Because every time you approve something you never chose, you raise the limit of what people think they can do without asking you first. Machiavelli once wrote that people judge more by what they see than by what is actually true. In other words, appearances matter more than reality. And the question, "You don't mind, right?" creates the appearance of agreement. It makes it look like you accepted the decision. It makes it look like you were involved in the process. And later, if you ever try to bring it up, the response will be simple, "But you said it was fine." That question did not just take your agreement. It took your signature on something you never chose. So the next time someone says, "You don't mind, right?" you do not automatically agree. You stay calm and simply say, "I would have preferred if you asked me first," or "I would have handled that differently." You do not need to argue. You do not need to become emotional. You just refuse to say yes when the situation is pushing you to say yes. And something very interesting happens when you stop doing that. People stop informing you and start consulting you. The moment people realize you will not approve decisions after they are made, they begin to ask before they act. That small change can completely shift how others treat you. That is the first question. The permission after action trap. Now let's move to the second question. This one is more difficult to notice because it does not happen after someone crosses a line. It happens before it. And it sounds like something a good friend would say. It sounds respectful. It sounds brave. It sounds honest. And because of that, you open the door every time. The second question you should never answer is this: "Can I be honest with you?" Think about how many times you have heard this, and think about how you always respond. You say, "Of course," every single time. Because what kind of person refuses honesty? What kind of person says no to the truth? So you agree. And in that moment, you give someone permission to say whatever they want, while presenting it as a favor to you. Think about the last time someone asked you, "Can I be honest with you?" What happened next? Did it make you stronger? Did it help you grow? Or did it make you doubt yourself? Did it plant insecurity in your mind? Usually what follows is not encouragement. It is criticism. It is doubt. It is something that makes you hesitate. And because they asked permission first, you feel like you are not allowed to react negatively. After all, they were just being honest. But here is the truth. Most of the time, it is not honesty. It is simply their opinion. And they hide that opinion behind the word honest, so it can't be challenged. Now think about the people who truly care about you. When they need to say something important, do they ask permission first? No. They just say it in a respectful way. Real honesty does not need permission. It does not need preparation. It does not need a dramatic introduction. The people who ask, "Can I be honest with you?" usually know that what they are about to say will not feel supportive. That is why they need your agreement before they say it. Because if they said it directly, you would see it clearly for what it is. Machiavelli understood something powerful. The strongest manipulations are always hidden behind something that looks good. When someone hides criticism behind the word honesty, you cannot respond without looking sensitive. They become the brave person telling the truth, and you become the person who cannot handle it. But watch what happens when you stop automatically agreeing. The next time someone says, "Can I be honest with you?" instead of saying, "Of course," you say something simple like, "It depends on what it's about," or, "You can say what you want, and I will decide what I think about it." Most people become uncomfortable immediately, because the whole situation depended on you agreeing without thinking. Once you stop doing that, the power of the question disappears. That is the second question, the honesty disguise. Now the third question is completely different. The first two take something from you immediately. The third one gives you something that looks positive at first, but later becomes a burden. The third question you should never answer is this: what would you do if you were me? At first, this question feels flattering. Someone trusts your judgment. Someone believes your opinion matters. A friend, a colleague, or a family member explains their situation and then asks you what they should do. So you think carefully. You analyze the situation. You try to give the best advice possible. And it feels good in that moment because it feels like respect. But here is what really happens. That person had a difficult decision to make. A decision with real consequences. Instead of carrying the full responsibility alone, they transferred part of that responsibility to you. If they follow your advice and everything works, they take the credit. But if they follow your advice and things go wrong, suddenly your words become the problem. They remember exactly what you said, and even if they do not say it directly, you feel the blame. This is how people unintentionally carry the weight of decisions that were never theirs to make. Because once you tell someone what they should do, your name becomes connected to the result. That is why the smartest response is not to answer the question directly. Instead of telling them what you would do, you ask them what they are already thinking. You help them think clearly, but you do not make the decision for them. That is the third question. The responsibility transfer. 3 questions down. But the fourth one moves into even more serious territory. The first 3 take something from you. The fourth one uses you to harm someone else without you realizing it. The fourth question you should never answer is this: who told you that? This usually happens when you confront someone. You bring up something you heard or something you discovered. Instead of answering the question or explaining the situation, they immediately ask where you got the information from, and the entire conversation changes direction. Suddenly, the focus is no longer on what they did. It is on how you found out. If you answer this question, you do 2 harmful things at the same time. You break someone's trust, and you give the person you are confronting a target. Instead of taking responsibility, they start trying to find out who exposed them, and once they know, they will make sure that person never speaks again. This is how people lose access to truth without even realizing it. That is why the smartest response is simple. You do not reveal the source. You bring the conversation back to the main issue. Because the moment you answer that question, the real problem disappears, and a new problem begins. That is the fourth question, the source trap. And now we move toward the fifth question, the most important one, the one that makes all the others possible. The question that removes the pause between the question and the answer and leaves you completely unprotected. Now we come to the fifth question. This is the most important one because it is the root of all the others. If you answer this one without thinking, every other trap becomes easier to use on you. The fifth question you should never answer is this: you trust me, right? It sounds simple. It sounds harmless. It sounds like something a close friend would ask. And that is exactly why almost everyone answers it immediately. Saying no feels rude. It feels like an accusation. It feels like you are the one damaging the relationship. So you say yes. You say, "Of course I trust you." And in that moment, you remove your own protection. Because once you say those words, questioning anything they do later becomes difficult. If they make a decision without asking you and then say, "You don't mind, right?" you hesitate to push back. After all, you already said you trusted them. If they say, "Can I be honest with you?" and then say something that weakens your confidence, you accept it because you trusted them. If they ask what you would do in their situation and later blame you for the result, you cannot react strongly because you trusted them. And if they ever ask, "Who told you that?" you feel pressure to answer because you trusted them. One simple word creates a chain around you. And the worst part is this: the people who truly deserve your trust rarely ask for it. They do not need to. Their behavior proves it over time. Trust is not something you say in one moment. It is something you build slowly by watching how someone acts again and again. When someone asks, "You trust me, right?" they are not building trust. They are asking you to declare it before it has truly been earned. The strongest response is not to say yes and not to say no. The strongest response is to stay calm and say something neutral like, "Trust is built over time," or "I trust actions more than words." This keeps your respect intact without giving away your position. Once you understand this fifth question, everything changes. You stop answering automatically. You start pausing before you respond. And that small pause gives you control over every conversation in your life. Most people never learn this. They answer quickly, they agree quickly, and they regret it later. But once you become aware of these 5 questions, you start seeing them everywhere. At work, in friendships, in family conversations, even in casual discussions. And the moment you stop answering them automatically, people start treating you differently. Not because you became aggressive, but because you became aware. Because you stopped giving away your time, your confidence, your name, and your trust without thinking. That is the real lesson behind these 5 questions. It is not about fear. It is about control. It is about understanding that every answer you give has value. And once you realize that, you choose your words more carefully than ever before. Now that you understand all 5 questions, the real power is not just knowing them. The real power is what you do the next time you hear one of them. Because from this point forward, you will notice something most people never notice. You will start hearing the pattern behind the words. You will start recognizing when a question is not really a question, but a way to take something from you without asking directly. You will notice when someone asks for permission after they already made a decision. You will notice when someone hides criticism behind the word honesty. You will notice when someone tries to shift responsibility onto you by asking what you would do in their place. You will notice when someone tries to redirect a conversation by asking who told you something. And most importantly, you will notice when someone asks for your trust instead of earning it. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The biggest mistake most people make is answering too quickly. They think silence makes them look weak. But in reality, silence gives you control. The moment you stop answering instantly, the entire dynamic changes. People begin to think before they ask. They become more careful with how they speak to you. Not because you became aggressive, but because you became aware. You do not need to argue. You do not need to explain yourself too much. You just need to stop giving automatic answers to questions that are designed to pressure you. A calm pause is often more powerful than a long explanation. Over time, something else happens. You start respecting your own time more. You stop agreeing to things you never wanted to do. You stop carrying responsibility that was never yours. You stop protecting people who never protected you. And that changes the way others see you completely. People respect boundaries when they feel them clearly. Not when you talk about them, but when you quietly stand by them. And these 5 questions are the places where most people lose their boundaries without even realizing it. Once you understand this, conversations become much easier. You do not feel pressured anymore. You do not feel forced to agree anymore. You simply listen, think, and then decide whether the question even deserves an answer. That small change creates a big difference in your life. So remember this clearly. Not every question deserves an answer, and not every person deserves your full honesty instantly. The moment you stop answering automatically, you protect your time, your confidence, and your decisions. The real strength is not in speaking more. The real strength is in choosing when to stay silent and when to respond. Once you understand these 5 questions, you will start seeing them everywhere, and you will never react the same way again. If you found this video helpful and you want more content like this, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. This is a new channel, and your support really helps it grow. Turn on notifications so you do not miss the next video.